Hi everyone, welcome to our town. I'm Jill Lawrence, and we have another great show today with a new face that's never been in. It is our one and only State Senator Becca Rausch. Welcome, Becca.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. This is my first political interview, if you want to call it that, or government interview.
Congratulations. I'm honored to be the first.
Yes, this is great. So you are the state senator for our town and for this district, representing Norfolk, Bristol, and Middlesex counties, part of those counties.
Yep. I represent 12 towns and cities, 12 municipalities, ranging from Wayland in the north of the Pike, all the way down to Attleboro in the south on the Rhode Island border.
Okay, so it's like the chunk. So it's in parts of those three counties, and including our little town of Norfolk and within Norfolk County. So awesome. And you were elected in November.
I was.
November 2018, 2018. And sworn in January. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And it's great. You know, it's great to have you. I bet you're very excited, to jump right in. And
we sure did. Jump right in.
You've already done it. Yeah. So we'll jump right into a little bit of what you've done since you've been in office. But first, let's just hear a little bit about who you are, if that's good. And you are from this district, right? Not born and raised, but you live here now, obviously in Needham. You said.
Yep, I was born and raised in upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
Just outside of Albany.
Oh, cool.
And I came to the Boston area to do my undergraduate degree at Brandeis, and then I stuck around to go to law school at Northeastern. I worked as an attorney for about half a dozen years downtown, and eventually developed some specialties in health law and privacy and security and sort of data-related specialties.
Cool.
And then I had always wanted to teach, because I wanted to think about the ways to kind of, when you're a practicing attorney, a lot of time you spend your days trying to figure out how to fit square pegs into round holes. And I said, boy, I'd really like to think about the shape of the hole instead of trying to ram the peg in all the time.
Right.
So I had always had that sort of in the back of my mind, and an opportunity arose for me to pursue that in academics.
Teaching.
And so I got another degree at the West Coast at University of California, Berkeley, in the law school there.
Oh, so you went out there.
We went out to the West Coast for a couple of years. I taught on the faculty as a visitor at the Seattle University School of Law.
Cool.
And I did, in fact, spend a lot of time thinking about how to change the shape of the hole, but I wasn't able to actually do anything to implement those good ideas from both my own ideas and those of my colleagues from all across the country. So we moved back to the Boston area. We settled in Needham, and now, amazingly, what a tremendous privilege it is to not just think about changing the shape of the whole, but actually meaningfully every day work toward actually achieving those changes to make people's lives better. So it's really phenomenal.
Oh wow! So you've done a lot. You look like you're about 27. So how did
I can thank my parents for those good genes.
I know. How did you get all that done in such a short time?
I'm older than 27.
So all right. So you upstate New York, and then you came to Boston to go to Brandeis, which I actually worked there.
Great
ways
school.
ago. Yep. Just like admissions, financial aid, and then went to law school.
Yep.
Right here, right? Massachusetts?
At Northeastern.
Oh, Northeastern, you said. And then, so cool that you were out in both Berkeley and Seattle. Seattle University? Yeah, okay.
So we spent a year in Berkeley and then 2 years in Seattle. It was great to live on the West Coast, and also it was really great to come back.
I know, it is. It's kind of, I agree, because I lived out there a year or two in Seattle, so
fantastic.
I know that feeling. And then you came back and settled in Needham, so cool. So you're a resident of Needham, and you just saw the opportunity to get involved in politics and in government. So
never in a million years did I think I would go into politics, but here we are.
Yeah, I know.
And now that I'm here, and in fact, at the very beginning, when I really started having some pretty serious conversations about running for this seat, when I spoke to my family and close friends, they said, "Oh, that makes perfect sense." And I said, "Somebody could have given me the memo, and
10 years
I
ago
would have figured this out a little bit sooner." But now that I'm here,
teaching was that you thought that teaching and being basically instructor at law schools, right? That was what were you doing that? You thought
I was a visiting professor.
Visiting professor. You thought that might be a way to enact change from sort of from the ground up, to really get underneath it, versus when you were practicing law, you were trying to get. But now you realize that this is a way that in your position now.
There are lots and lots and lots of ways to affect change through the law. Right. I went to law school to learn to use the law as a tool for social change.
Right.
And there are so many practicing attorneys who are doing phenomenal change work, and many people in the legal academy also doing phenomenal change work. Right. It just and both of those were viable paths for me. But it turns out that, in fact, being a lawmaker is the one that just is the best fit. It just fits.
Awesome.
So my team and I have been extremely busy. We jumped in. We got sworn in on January 2nd.
Right.
Both my kids, were there. But my kids are under 5. So
you have tiny kids. Okay.
Tiny kids. They know a lot about civics, though.
Yeah, I bet. Tiny kids who are smart about civics.
Who are smart about civics. Yes. They sat in my Senate chair, my actual chair in the chamber, which was adorable.
Yeah.
And of course, the picture that the Boston Globe wanted, which totally makes sense.
I'm glad you had it.
And we just, hit the ground running. We filed a bunch of bills, more than 24 bills in the first bit of January. We co-sponsored hundreds more in the last 2 weeks of January, and that was just the first 4 weeks that we were in office. Yeah. I also served on the Senate president appointed me to the temporary committee on rules. So I had my first committee service very within weeks of being sworn in. And I really appreciate that opportunity and that privilege, that appointment from the Senate president. It's very rare for a first year, for someone brand new to be involved in setting the rules for the chamber and in fact all the joint rules as well, when you've not served yet in the legislature. So that was a real honor.
That is what, right? Having having the background that you have helps because you've studied law. You've both studied it as a student and a teacher, right? In fact I taught civil procedure, which is all about rules. So along with health law. So it was a good fit. I really like rules. And we were able to make some really good positive change in the rules. I also serve as the Senate chair of the Joint Committee on Municipalities and Regional Government and the Senate vice chair of the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs. And I sit as a rank and file member on 5 additional committees. So we are very busy. Just earlier today, in fact, we filed all of our budget amendments for for the fiscal 20 cycle. And we'll be heading into debate for that by the time this airs, it'll be next week, the week heading into Memorial Day weekend. Right.
So it's a very exciting time. Yeah. And of course, that's not to say anything of all the time and wonderful things that I've been able to attend and support and lift up in our district. Right. Certainly Norfolk, Plainville, Rentham, and all the towns and cities in north and south of here. So it's extremely busy, but extremely exciting and just a tremendous privilege to serve.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you being a state senator, you really are in the towns a lot, and you probably hear directly from your constituents, especially if they have something that you're the first, right? You're the first contact, probably one of the first contacts, and so you have that you've got that human the human connection, but then you've also doing, like you said, the rules and the policy, so it's probably a nice mix. So you've got it on that sort of that. Or maybe it's also feeling like you get tugged. Well,
I have a really tremendous staff, and I would be sunk without them. And I'm so grateful to all of them for the tremendous work that they do, serving all of the residents of this district every single day.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I have an outreach director, for example, who does a lot of the district-related work, both with constituents and with leaders in local governments, for example, and activist groups that are getting involved in various different ways. And I also have a general counsel and a legislative director, and she focuses on policy, obviously. And so everyone has a couple of legislative aides, and I have a chief of staff. And over the summer, we're going to have this tremendous crop of interns that I'm really excited to welcome to our office.
Are they college age usually?
Yep, most of them are in college. We have some that are in grad school, and one that's pursuing a PhD. Excuse me, I have a couple of high schoolers as well coming in.
Yep.
So it's exciting. We have this tremendous team.
Yeah.
And we work really hard every day to bring great things to the district.
Right, that's great. I can get you water too if you need it.
Yeah, I might.
On the debate stage when people need to drink water. Oh, there were no debating today.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I guess, a little bit to go towards policy. So think of this as you're educating me, but also any viewers as to I don't know, some of the things that are important to you, but also like what kind of policy you do affect in Boston, because, as a state senator, because I actually don't even really know what, I don't, because I'm not entrenched in that. So I know, highlight a few things that you think are important for us to know. So, whether it's about budget or about, some of the other things you've done since January.
Great. So a lot of the sort of nuts and bolts of how the bigger issues in life get delivered and get funded, all happen at the state level, which is there's a relationship between the state and the federal government, and also the state and the local governments. If you're particularly concerned about a pothole in the town, that's a local government issue. But and sort of the makeup of your structure of how your local town works.
That's a local
so
thing.
one of the towns I represented just had a big charter change, and so they're shifting the way their local government is going to work. Which is very exciting. And I think a really important change for the town, and the people in the town voted overwhelmingly to support that.
Oh, wow. To change their actual charter. Oh, what town was it? Can you tell?
North Attleboro.
Oh,
It just passed a big charter change, so they're shifting into a different form of government.
All right.
So they're shifting from a town meeting structure to a town council structure.
Oh, okay.
Which is,
sometimes
very exciting.
That's a growth thing, right? With a certain size, like a certain size population.
I think it's just a shift in the methodology of what people were interested in making this change. So that's exciting, and I'm thrilled to support that transition. So that's local government.
Yeah,
right?
so like you have a thing really, it's like you're frustrated with a pothole, you're frustrated that some meeting's not being covered or whatever. Right, that's
those
a
are kind of local.
Thing. But then most people, you were saying, go ahead. Then
so then there's federal government that the biggest, right? The biggest, yes, but also anything that the federal government touches is set in the Constitution, right, and all stems from the federal Constitution. And if it's not a power that's relegated to that's specified for the federal government, everything else falls to the states, right, by design.
Yeah. So really, the state is the busiest. You said it well. The state is what affects people's lives more in the most impactful way. Is that what you're saying?
I think a lot of what the state does is directly impactful in people's day-to-day lives, right? Education, transportation, healthcare. I hear a lot about all three of those things. I hear a lot about early education in particular, and the increasingly high costs and in many cases unaffordable costs of childcare, early childcare, and pre-K. People are paying more for pre-K and childcare than they do for their mortgages, and that is not a sustainable model, right? That's part of what forces generally women out of the workforce for 5, 6, 10 years, however long we're having babies, and then you go back in, and there's this whole disruption. Right? There are all sorts of
there's a gap in your knowledge,
ramifications, right? Negative ramifications that come from that, and that's related certainly to a policy question, and that kind of policy question is a state level policy question, right? Fixing the T, fixing the commuter rail, right? We're all up in arms about that. I filed a bill on it even.
Oh, you did. I'd like to hear a little more if you want to go into that, and then we can go back, because that's a hot topic in Norfolk.
It's a hot topic everywhere, and Norfolk at least has a station, right? I represent towns that have no access to the commuter rail,
unless they drive to the town,
they drive to a neighboring, exactly. So the day, the Fiscal Control Board for the MBTA recently raised the rates. I'm sure everybody heard about that. I did. Raised the sort of regular fare rates on the T and the commuter rail. And the Fiscal Control Board currently is made up of 5 people. And the very next day, my colleague, State Rep Maria Robinson, who represents part of Framingham, and I filed a bill to seat the voices of riders on the T and the commuter rail on the control board. We said, if you're going to raise rates, you better have those voices at the table.
Yes.
Because we know, particularly as women in politics, we know that having representative voices at the table changes the conversation. We see it daily. And that's important.
I wish sometimes in the bigger picture of the national politics that would also be some things people recognize. But anyway, so I digress. So back to, so you said on this board, of 5 people you said?
On the Fiscal Control Board,
you want actual commuters. So you want people.
So we wrote a bill to add 2 additional people.
Yes.
One would represent the voices of riders of the T,
riders, yes.
and one would represent voices of the riders of the commuter rail.
Great.
So it would increase the board from 5 to 7.
And where's that bill now?
It's sitting.
It's a bill.
It's sitting. It's a bill. There were over.
There's a song about this.
There is indeed.
I'm not going to sing.
There are over 6,300 bills filed just this session alone, and that doesn't include the budget or the budget amendments or any of those things. So it's a very busy legislative cycle.
Okay.
And there are lots and lots and lots of bills to look at. And that bill eventually will get heard by the Joint Committee on Transportation. And I look forward to testifying on behalf of that bill once. Once it gets called up. Representative Dooley also is a co-sponsor. Both Representative Robinson and I were very excited to see in a very short amount of time.
Dooley. Oh, right. That's right. I feel like I remember seeing that. So.
We have both bipartisan and bicameral, right, Senate and House support for this bill, and support continues to grow. So that's very exciting.
Oh, that's a new word. Bipartisan. We know what that means. Bicameral means the House versus the Senate.
Both chambers.
Both chambers. Right? Oh, good.
Yep.
Nice.
So, vocabulary lesson.
Didn't know
check.
that word. Yeah.
It's a good one and not a frequently used one.
Right.
So that's certainly something that I'm paying attention to and focused on. Healthcare is. I'm a former healthcare attorney, so healthcare is really important to me. I filed a couple of bills specifically in the healthcare space to ensure that everybody has full, equal, affordable access to the broad spectrum of healthcare. I'm also particularly interested, especially in this time in our national history, but also specifically in our state history, of engagement in politics and government and governance. It's certainly the greatest amount of involvement and awareness that I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Oh, really? You feel like that?
Yeah, I think just so many people are even just more aware, right? Even if you're not involved, people are aware now more than I think ever before,
and what do you
at least in my few decades on this planet.
Right. And what do you attribute that to?
I
cable news.
I believe it's related to the scene in the national political cycle. But I think it's also, really important on our state level, right?
Yes,
I mean, we do tremendous things in the State House.
Right, like you said, it's like the bulk of people's awareness of how government affects them. It sounds like it's state government.
A lot of it. I would say the majority of it is actually at the state level.
Right.
And that's really powerful. So I think part of my duty as the state senator for this district and one of the 40 state senators for the state is to support that. So I filed a number of bills to support good governance and good democracy and access to the ballot and election reform and things along those lines.
Okay, which is one of your passions about just that. Engagement. That's under engagement.
Supporting engagement.
Yeah, supporting people.
Related to my sort of nerdiness about the rules, I like to see systems work well. So the good democracy bucket of policy work that I'm doing, it directly relates to making our system work well. Right. It's also why I pay attention to efficiencies, and I am a Democrat who cares about appropriate appropriate spending and ensuring that we are not spending wastefully.
Right.
So
people will be happy to hear that.
I care about transparency and I care about efficiency and effectiveness. So I filed a couple of budget amendments along those lines as well. And some bills.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess in your intro, we didn't say what political party. I don't know. I don't know why. I guess that I just wanted you to be a person and not have to worry about being a part of a party, right? Just
that's part of who I am too.
A few minutes. But
I am in fact the second Democrat ever to hold the seat.
Only?
And there was only one other Democrat before me, who coincidentally was also a woman who at the time lived in Needham.
Oh, that's funny. And how long ago was that?
That was
a couple decades.
About 15 to 20 years ago. She came in the 90s. Her name was Cheryl Jakes. She came in the 90s. She served for just shy of a decade. And then she went on to pursue other things. Scott Brown succeeded her. And then Richard Ross came in after him, and now me.
I forget that. That's right. Scott Brown was in there too.
Yep.
Okay, so you're only the second Democrat in the whole, however long we've had a state senator from this area. Wow.
A very long time.
Yeah. Right. right? A century or two. Oh, cool. So something popped in my head when you were just chatting. I think it was, I guess I didn't know if we wanted to touch on healthcare a little bit more before we get to towards the end of our segment. So the Massachusetts, because I'm not like a healthcare, I'm sort of more an education person. So, but the health plan that we have, the one that was set up when Mitt Romney was governor, what is that officially? What is the name of that? It's not. I mean, does it have a name? No.
It's the people like to call it Romney Care.
Okay, yeah, but I don't hear that a lot. Like,
no, you wouldn't hear it anymore because it's been around for a long time, and so it's just kind of the way we do things. now.
It's just the state health care.
It's just right. It's just our state law. It's also now that we have the Affordable Health Care, the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I was wondering.
They're pretty closely aligned.
Okay. Right.
There was some work the state needed to do in order to comply with the ACA when the federal system, was enacted, but all that's been sorted out.
The ACA then sort of supersedes it if your state, like our state had, we already had something similar, or maybe something that was a precursor.
Yep, it was in fact a precursor.
Right. So the ACA sort of takes over in a way, right? I mean,
depending,
not in every state, because every state is different. But in Massachusetts, we already had that sort of universal coverage, right?
So what I hear from a lot of people is that and anybody who ever argued with an insurance company would tell you we don't really have universal coverage.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Whether you have an insurance plan and whether you're actually covered in an affordable way are two completely different questions.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we're all required to have insurance now.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But have you argued with an insurance company?
Yes.
I've argued with an insurance company, and I have a tremendous amount of privilege behind me. And when I do argue with an insurance, right? I'm a healthcare attorney.
Yeah.
I'm now a state senator. Right? Like I know how to have that conversation, and I still, I had one that took me almost a year to resolve it.
Wow.
Right? That's not meaningful, really, truly, deeply universal access to affordable and quality health care.
Right. If you're arguing if you debate on the phone.
Who has time to do that?
I know.
Right? We got families, and work, and all sorts of other things that we do with our time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't our time be better spent doing a whole bunch of other things?
Right. Than doing that. Yeah.
So I am deeply invested in making sure that everybody really does have truly universal access to affordable and quality health care. And in fact, the fact that we don't have that right now is part of why we're seeing that problem kind of seep into a whole bunch of other areas. For example, the rising cost of education. Right? One of the 4 buckets of money in the foundation budget for Chapter 70 funding is in fact the rising cost of healthcare. Right? If we had a truly universal system, that wouldn't be a factor in our education funding. We would just take care of all of that, right?
There.
Right? Yeah. The ridiculous cost of EpiPens, that would all be taken care of. Right? There are all sorts of little things that creep up, right? And you have to kind of deal with them in this, I want to say piecemeal. It's not really piecemeal, but somewhat piecemeal, if you will, way. That if we just took care of the whole system in the first place, we would solve a lot of those problems.
That trickle down from that, I see.
Right, that sort of flow out of that.
They don't trickle, they flow.
They flow. They don't. It's a really good point. They don't trickle, they flow.
Yeah. Well, so before we wrap up, I just thought it would be interesting. Maybe because I always love to know sort of what shapes people as they're right from the beginning. So you're a progressive Democrat. I mean, I assume that's how you sort of define your views. What things might have shaped that when you were growing up in upstate New York? Was your family like did you grow up in like a liberal household? Was your family Democrats? And as you went into school and high school, college, I don't know. Just I find this interesting.
Sure. I did. Both my parents are Democrats. Excuse me. Though they haven't always been.
Oh, okay. They are now.
I would say more than whatever party my parents happen to identify with, important to how I became who I am.
Yeah.
Is the fact that I am the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor.
Okay.
And so since I was very young, I have been working on issues of social justice related to identity differences, particularly
Louis Brandeis was a good fit for you.
Brandeis was a great fit for me. In fact, will be seeing some of my college classmates and their families tonight, even.
Yeah. So right from the get-go, so that was something that shaped you. Whether I didn't know if maybe I know in my household growing up there were a lot of political, there was lots of politics discussed. No one was in politics, but it was definitely issues were discussed. So that shaped me, whether I agreed with all of them now or used to or whatever, but more that it was like an open topic. It was an interest, and so it sounds like it might have been in your house some.
I don't really remember having a whole lot of political discussions as a child. Both my parents, not for the full time of my childhood, but both of my parents at least various points in my childhood were public servants.
Oh, okay.
So that value is certainly instilled. But when I was in high school, as the granddaughter of a survivor, I found a swastika on my desk.
Oh, my goodness.
And so
that was intended for you? Or you don't know? It was on the desk.
I presume so, but I have no idea.
Right.
I didn't, ever talk to the person who drew it. But I know what it feels like to be the target.
Right.
So from that, and certainly in light of seeing my parents' dedication to social justice and community building and public service, I have, as I said a few moments ago, been working on social justice in a broadly intersectional way since before I even knew what those words meant. And at various stages of my academic development and my personal growth, I've been able to sort of build that area of interest and critical thinking and creativeness.
Yeah.
And trying to find solutions. That's why I went to law school, right?
Compassion.
To learn to use the law as a tool to generate this kind of social change, which is really exciting. Really exciting to now be in a position, what a huge privilege to be able to be in a position now where I can actually help make that happen every day.
That's great. I feel like, you've done a lot. Like I said, it seems like in a very short time, but you've been, you're making a difference. What grandparent was, I'm out of curiosity, maternal, paternal?
My maternal grandfather.
Grandfather who survived.
He did survive.
Survived for
he made it out.
Of years. And then moved
just
here?
Barely. He eventually he made it to this country. Wow. He actually made it here and almost immediately enlisted and went right back to his hometown, home city in Germany to fight against Hitler and the Nazis.
So he moved here before the war was even over.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was arrested. He was captured by the Nazis. He then was somehow, no one knows, released, escaped. We don't know.
Right.
Eventually made it here.
And
then, he just couldn't get here, right? He had to kind of go through various other parts of Europe. Eventually made it here. Yeah. And then went right back to fight.
In the U.S. Army or as a member of a service.
As I understand it, doing some translating and some other really important work.
German, of course.
Exactly.
Oh, well, that is an inspiring story. Yeah. Wow, it's a nice place to end, I guess. Although I could talk more about it. Wow, that's really wild. Well, I can see it's nice to know. I feel like that's a nice thing to know about someone and sort of what shapes your view of the world and your compassion and passion. So, well, Becca Rausch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was good. Norfolk and beyond, we'll get to know you a little bit better, and you'll be serving as our state senator for the next 2 years, and then probably running again. So we're so glad to have you, and thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, great. And for NCTV, I'm Jill Lawrence. Thanks for watching.